She asked me to watch her dog, a simple favor. But when I got to her house, there was no dog, only her two terrified children, their small hands clutching worn grocery bags, waiting on the porch for a mother who was never coming back. The afternoon sun beat down, harsh and unforgiving, baking the asphalt driveway and the concrete porch steps. The only sound was the distant drone of cicadas, a monotonous hum that amplified the unsettling silence around the two small figures, still as statues amidst the July heat, their shadows long and lonely. My heart had been light when my cousin, Chloe, called, asking me to dog sit while she went on a quick trip. A few days, no problem. I'd grab some kibble, toss a ball, easy money. But when I pulled into her driveway, the first thing I saw was Emily, all 8 years of her, clutching a stuffed elephant missing an ear, her face streaked with silent tears. Beside her, 5-year-old Leo, chocolate smeared on his cheek, fresh tears tracking down his face, held a collapsing grocery bag that threatened to spill its mismatched contents onto the ground. Their eyes, wide and tired, met mine. My cheerful mood evaporated, replaced by a sudden, icy dread. "Where's your mom?" I asked, the words feeling foreign, heavy. Emily pointed toward the empty driveway, her voice small but steady. "She left this morning. Said you were coming to watch us." My stomach dropped. They'd been standing there since noon. It was almost 3 o'clock. This wasn't dog-sitting. This was something much, much worse. I pulled out my phone, my fingers fumbling, and called Chloe immediately. Her cheerful voicemail message played, promising to call back soon. I tried again. Same result. The kids were swaying on their feet from exhaustion, Leo's grocery bag now actively shedding clothes onto the dusty porch. I couldn't leave them like abandoned packages. Chloe had given me a spare key for emergencies. This felt like the mother of all emergencies. I unlocked the front door and ushered them inside. The house hit me like a physical blow. The air was thick and stale, a sickening mix of sour milk, damp laundry, and something unidentifiable that made my stomach churn. Dishes had been sitting in the sink so long they'd grown fuzzy mold. Laundry was piled on every surface, chairs, tables, even the stairs. Mail covered the kitchen counter in chaotic stacks, bills marked "Final Notice" sat unopened next to pizza boxes and empty wine bottles. My eyes landed on a crumpled note on the kitchen table, Chloe's distinctive, messy handwriting scrawled across it, "Emergency work trip. Back Sunday. Thanks for helping." It was written on the back of a credit card statement. I couldn't help but notice the balance, $4,047 over the limit. An emergency work trip? My gut screamed. I called Chloe's work, trying to cling to some semblance of normalcy. The receptionist sounded genuinely confused when I mentioned Chloe's business emergency. "Chloe Miller?" she asked, a slight pause. She requested vacation time last Monday, submitted the paperwork herself. She won't be back until next Thursday at the earliest. My hand started trembling. Chloe had planned this deception for over a week. I hung up, the receiver feeling impossibly heavy, and stared at the kids. Emily was methodically opening kitchen cabinets, her small frame searching for something edible. The pantry contained only stale cereal, expired crackers, and condiment packets from fast food restaurants. Leo was still sitting exactly where I'd left him, clutching his bag of mismatched clothes like a security blanket. The refrigerator was practically empty, a carton of spoiled milk, leftover Chinese food growing fur, and half a bottle of ketchup. These kids had been living like this for who knows how long. A wave of nauseating clarity washed over me, they were starving. Without a second thought, I loaded them into my car and drove to the nearest grocery store. Emily, surprisingly composed, helped me pick out real food, fresh bread, milk, fruit, frozen meals that wouldn't require advanced cooking skills. The total came to $67.23. I paid with my credit card, the memory of Chloe's maxed-out statement stinging. Back at the house, I made proper peanut butter sandwiches while the kids sat at the kitchen table. Leo swung his legs and hummed quietly. Emily watched me with careful, evaluating eyes. Chloe had always been the fun cousin, The one who showed up to family gatherings with expensive gifts and wild stories, dated musicians, traveled spontaneously. But I'd never seen her house this bad. Never realized how the chaos truly affected her children. Emily finished her sandwich and started cleaning up without being asked, rinsing plates and putting them in the dishwasher like it was routine. An 8-year-old shouldn't be that responsible. My phone buzzed during dinner. A text from an unknown 702 area code. This is Chloe's new phone. Kids good. Be back soon. Having amazing time. My blood ran cold. I called the number immediately. It rang twice then went to a generic voicemail. When I tried texting back, the message showed as undelivered. The number had been disconnected. Chloe was covering her tracks. That evening, I helped the kids shower in a bathtub that desperately needed serious cleaning. Leo's pajamas had holes in both knees. Emily's were 2 sizes too small. I tucked them into beds with sheets that smelled like they hadn't been washed in weeks. Emily asked if I was absolutely sure I wasn't leaving during the night. I promised I'd be downstairs on the couch if they needed anything. Mom says that sometimes, too, Emily said, her voice small, far away. The pain in her voice made me want to drive to Vegas myself and drag Chloe home by her perfectly coiffed hair. I spent that night on Chloe's lumpy couch, jerking awake every time the old house creaked or settled. Emily came downstairs twice, once at midnight, once at 3 a.m., to verify I was still there. The second time, she just stood in the doorway for a minute before going back upstairs without saying anything, a silent sentinel of her own abandonment. Friday morning brought complete silence from Chloe. I tried calling her friends, but most of the phone numbers in her contacts were disconnected or belonged to people who hadn't heard from her in months. The few who did answer painted a concerning picture. Chloe had been asking to borrow money from everyone. She'd missed her last 3 jobs due to family emergencies that turned out to be hangovers or new boyfriends. One friend mentioned that Chloe had been talking about this Vegas trip for weeks, planning it like a military operation. Then I remembered Aunt Susan. Chloe's mother lived across town and usually kept tabs on Chloe's chaos. Aunt Susan answered on the 3rd ring, sounding tired and fed up. She confirmed that Chloe was indeed in Las Vegas, posting photos and videos on social media constantly. She was with some guy she'd met on a dating app last month. She told me it was an emergency work trip, I said, a bitter taste in my mouth. Aunt Susan snorted. Emergency work trip to the casino floor? She's been planning this vacation for weeks. I asked how Aunt Susan knew so much detail. Because she asked me for money to pay for it, she explained. Said it was for the kids' school clothes. School doesn't start for 6 weeks. My hands began to shake with barely contained fury. I hung up and opened Facebook. Chloe's profile was a parade of Vegas excess, a Bellagio fountain selfie from Thursday night. A group photo at a blackjack table Friday afternoon. Videos of her dancing at some club until 4 a.m. The latest post showed Chloe at an expensive steakhouse, holding up a glass of wine. The caption read, "When life gives you Vegas, you take Vegas. Living my truth, no regrets. Best week ever." The post was timestamped 20 minutes ago. I screenshot every single image and comment. The evidence was overwhelming. My cousin was living it up in Sin City while her children ate peanut butter sandwiches and asked when mommy was coming home. I scrolled deeper into her recent posts. Photos from earlier in the week showed Chloe shopping at expensive stores, getting her nails done, posing by hotel pools. She'd been documenting her entire Vegas adventure while completely ignoring her children's existence. The comments on her posts made my blood boil, friends cheering her on, telling her she deserved this, calling her a queen for living her best life. Nobody asked about Emily and Leo. I called Chloe using my work phone, hoping she might answer an unfamiliar number. A man picked up after several rings. His voice was confused and slightly slurred. "Yeah, who's this?" "I need to speak to Chloe Miller." "Chloe, hang on." Background noise flooded the line, slot machines dinging, people laughing loudly, music pumping from overhead speakers. I could hear him asking someone if they knew Chloe. A woman's voice in the background, not Chloe, laughed and said something I couldn't make out. Finally, Chloe's voice came through the phone. She sounded drunk and artificially happy. "Hey, how are my babies doing? When are you coming home?" I asked, my voice tight. "Home? Oh, soon. This place is absolutely incredible. You should see this hotel room. The kids miss you, Chloe." They miss me? I've only been gone like 2 days, though," she giggled. "It's been 4 days. You said you'd be back Sunday." "Did I say Sunday? Huh? Well, you know how it is. Plans change when you're having the time of your life." She giggled again, like she'd made a hilarious joke. "Chloe, your children think you might not be coming back," I yelled, my control snapping. "Don't be so dramatic. Tell them mommy's having fun and she'll see them super soon." The line went dead. I tried calling back immediately. The number was blocked. Saturday felt like the longest day of my life. The kids asked about their mom every couple of hours. I was running out of creative explanations. Emily was definitely getting suspicious. She'd caught me checking my phone obsessively and overheard parts of my phone calls. Leo was starting to regress. He'd wet the bed Friday night, something Emily quietly told me he hadn't done in over a year. That evening, Emily cornered me in the kitchen while Leo was distracted by cartoons. "She's not coming back Sunday, is she?" I couldn't lie to an 8-year-old anymore. Her eyes were too knowing, too tired. I told her honestly that I didn't think Chloe would be back Sunday. Emily's face crumpled for exactly 3 seconds before she pulled herself together. She was 8 years old and already an expert at managing disappointment. She said Chloe had made the same promises about their dad before he left permanently. My heart shattered. Chloe's ex-husband had walked out 2 years ago after a massive fight about money and responsibility. He'd hugged the kids goodbye and promised he'd see them real soon. Emily had been 6, but she remembered every detail of that abandonment. Now, she was watching it happen again. Sunday arrived with deafening silence from Chloe. I took the kids to the local park, bought them ice cream from a truck, and tried to manufacture normal childhood moments. But Leo kept asking when mommy was coming home, and my answers were getting more strained and less believable. That evening, I made the phone call I'd been dreading. The police non-emergency operator was professional but immediately concerned when I explained the situation: a mother gone since Thursday morning with no real contact, 2 young children left with a relative who'd been deceived about the nature and duration of care needed. She said an officer would be dispatched within the hour. Officer Evans arrived at 7:30 p.m. sharp. She looked young, maybe early 30s, with intelligent eyes and a methodical approach to gathering information. She sat up at Chloe's kitchen table and pulled out a detailed incident report form. I walked her through everything chronologically: the Thursday afternoon phone call about dog sitting, arriving to find children instead of a pet, the lies about work emergencies, the Vegas social media posts, the blocked phone numbers. Officer Evans photographed all the evidence on my phone: every Facebook post, every failed call log, every unanswered text message. "This constitutes child abandonment under state law," she said, making notes. "We're required to contact Child Protective Services immediately." I asked if I could just keep the kids until Chloe returned. Officer Evans explained that without legal guardianship, proper protocols had to be followed. They'd attempt to contact the mother first. If no response within 24 hours, emergency placement procedures would begin. She said kinship care was preferred when possible, meaning I might be able to keep Emily and Leo temporarily, but everything had to go through official channels. That night, I systematically called every contact in Chloe's phone. Most numbers were disconnected or belonged to people who'd lost touch with her months ago. The few people I reached painted an increasingly disturbing picture of Chloe's recent behavior. Her brother, Daniel, in Portland, hadn't heard from her since Christmas. He said she'd called multiple times last year asking for emergency loans, always for the kids, she claimed: school supplies, medical bills, food money. Daniel had sent money twice before realizing Chloe was probably lying about the emergencies. Her sister, Sarah, in Chicago, said Chloe had called the previous week asking for a cash advance. When Sarah asked what for, Chloe claimed Emily needed dental work. I made a mental note to check if Emily actually needed dental work. Based on everything else, that was probably another lie. Chloe's college roommate, Jessica, hadn't spoken to her in 2 months, but she'd been following Chloe's social media posts about her amazing new relationship. The boyfriend was supposedly wealthy and generous, taking Chloe on expensive trips and buying her designer clothes. Jessica said Chloe had been bragging about landing a sugar daddy who would solve all her financial problems. Nobody I spoke with seemed surprised by Chloe's Vegas disappearance. Several people mentioned her pattern of prioritizing new boyfriends over her children. That realization hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't Chloe's first time choosing herself over Emily and Leo. This was just the first time she'd been caught. Monday morning arrived with another knock at the door. Ms. Chen from Child Protective Services stood on the porch with a thick folder and a kind but tired expression. She was probably in her mid-40s with prematurely gray hair and eyes that had clearly seen too many cases like this one. Ms. Chen conducted formal interviews with Emily and Leo in Chloe's living room. She spoke to them separately in age-appropriate language, asking gentle questions about their home life. Emily's answers were devastating in their matter-of-fact delivery. Yes, Mom sometimes left them alone at night when she went out with friends. Usually, she came back by morning, but sometimes not until the next afternoon. Yes, they'd been hungry before when there wasn't food in the house. Emily had learned to make sandwiches and heat up soup in the microwave. Yes, Mom had forgotten to pick them up from school multiple times. Emily knew to wait in the office until someone came. Leo's interview was shorter but equally concerning. He mentioned making his own breakfast when Mommy was sleeping really hard. He talked about being scared when loud strangers came over late at night. Ms. Chen took careful notes on everything and photographed the children's belongings. The grocery bags of clothes told their own story, nothing matched, nothing fit properly, and essential items like underwear and socks were missing entirely. She asked me detailed questions about Chloe's history and my relationship with the family. I told her everything I knew, which I realized wasn't nearly enough: the missed school pickups that left kids waiting until 5 p.m., the utilities that got shut off regularly for non-payment, the parade of boyfriends who stayed over without consideration for the children. Chloe's pattern was becoming crystal clear. She consistently prioritized her own immediate desires over her children's basic needs. This Vegas trip wasn't an aberration. It was the natural escalation of years of selfish parenting. Ms. Chen took extensive photos of the living conditions, the empty refrigerator with spoiled food, the overflowing garbage that hadn't been taken out in weeks, the stack of unpaid bills threatening utility shutoffs. She documented the children's sleeping arrangements, beds with dirty sheets, clothes scattered everywhere. No evidence of bedtime routines or structure. "I'm recommending emergency kinship care placement with you," she said after completing her assessment. "But we need the mother to return immediately or face formal criminal charges." I called Aunt Susan again, hoping for Chloe's exact travel details. Aunt Susan had more information this time, and none of it was good news. Chloe's original flight home was supposed to be Sunday, but she'd changed it to Wednesday. Then Wednesday got pushed to Friday. Now, Aunt Susan wasn't sure when Chloe was actually returning. "The boyfriend keeps extending the trip," Aunt Susan explained. "Pays for everything, so Chloe just goes along with it." I asked if Aunt Susan had expressed any concern about the children. "I told her she needed to call you, but she said you were family, and family doesn't complain about helping out." Chloe had twisted this into my responsibility somehow. I checked Facebook again and immediately regretted it. Chloe had posted 6 new photos in the past 2 hours: a pool party with a group of strangers, everyone holding colorful drinks, an expensive dinner at a steakhouse, the menu prices visible in the background, shopping bags from Gucci and Louis Vuitton piled on a hotel bed. The latest post showed Chloe getting a massage at some luxury spa. The caption read, "Vacation extended again." Sometimes you just have to say yes to life. Hashtag blessed living, hashtag my best life, hashtag no regrets, hashtag cheers Vegas. The post was timestamped 37 minutes ago. I screenshot every single image and comment thread, building a digital evidence file. My cousin was spending what looked like thousands of dollars on herself while her children ate stale cereal and asked when mommy was coming home. I forwarded everything to Officer Evans immediately. She called me back within 15 minutes. "We're issuing an arrest warrant," she said without preamble. "This is felony child abandonment. When she returns to Texas, she'll be taken into custody." I asked what would happen to Emily and Leo. "An emergency custody hearing will be scheduled within 72 hours of her arrest. Given the circumstances, you'll likely be granted temporary guardianship." Tuesday morning brought another call, this time from Chloe's cousin, Michelle. Her tone was defensive and annoyed from the first word. Michelle explained that Chloe was upset about me overreacting to a simple family favor. I asked what family favor involved lying about dogs and disappearing for 6 days. Michelle made excuses. Chloe was going through a difficult time. This new boyfriend made her happy. She deserves some fun after years of struggling as a single mom. I pointed out that struggling single moms don't typically afford week-long Vegas vacations. Michelle claimed the boyfriend was paying for everything. Chloe had finally found someone who treated her right. I asked about Emily and Leo's treatment. Who was treating them right? Michelle got defensive. Kids are resilient. They'll be fine. Chloe would never actually abandon her children because she loves them. I asked when Chloe was planning to return and demonstrate this love. Tomorrow night, I think, or maybe Thursday. She's having such an incredible time. 6 days. Chloe had been gone 6 days and counting. Michelle told me I was making a big deal out of nothing before hanging up. Wednesday afternoon, my phone finally rang with Chloe's name on the screen. Her voice was sharp and angry, no longer the slurred party girl from earlier calls. She demanded to know why police were looking for her. I explained that abandoning children for nearly a week tends to attract law enforcement attention. Chloe insisted she'd left them with family, which wasn't abandonment. I listed her lies systematically: the non-existent dog, the fake work emergency, the broken promise to return Sunday, the blocked phone numbers. Chloe's excuse was that she needed a break from the stress of single motherhood. I pointed out that needing a break doesn't justify tricking family members and disappearing without contact. Chloe claimed her phone had died, which made it impossible to call. I mentioned her numerous social media posts, all timestamped and geotagged from various Vegas locations. Silence on her end. "I'll be home tonight," she finally said. "There's a warrant for your arrest." "That's ridiculous. I'll straighten this out when I get back." "You should have straightened it out before you left." The line went dead. That evening, Chloe appeared at her front door exactly when she'd promised. For once in her life, she was punctual. She looked like she'd spent a week at an expensive spa, fresh tan, professional manicure, hairstyled perfectly. Her clothes were new and obviously expensive. She walked into her own house like she'd been gone for an hour instead of 6 days. Leo ran to her immediately, desperate for maternal attention. Chloe scooped him up and spun him around, acting delighted to see him. Emily hung back near the stairs, watching the reunion with careful, knowing eyes. Chloe gushed about how much she'd missed them, how she'd thought about them constantly, how sorry she was that work had kept her away so long. Every word was a performance. I stepped forward and informed her we needed to talk privately. Chloe looked genuinely confused about what there was to discuss. She was home now. Crisis over. I began listing her deceptions methodically: the dog that never existed, the work emergency that was actually a vacation, the Sunday return that became Wednesday that became whenever she felt like it. Chloe's expression shifted from confusion to annoyance. She informed me that she didn't owe explanations about how she chose to parent her children. Officer Evans chose that exact moment to knock on the front door. Chloe's face went paper white when she saw the police uniform through the window. Officer Evans identified herself and informed Chloe she was under arrest for felony child abandonment. Chloe protested that the charge was ridiculous. She'd only been gone for a few days on a work trip. 6 days, Officer Evans corrected, for personal travel, leaving minor children with a relative who was deceived about the duration and nature of care required. The handcuffs made a sharp clicking sound in the sudden silence. I quickly directed Emily and Leo to go upstairs before they could witness their mother being arrested. Emily grabbed Leo's hand and pulled him away, but not before Leo asked loudly why the police lady was putting jewelry on Mommy's wrists. Chloe turned on me as Officer Evans read her Miranda rights. She hissed that this was entirely my fault. I'd ruined her first vacation in years over a simple misunderstanding. I told her she'd ruined her children's sense of security over a gambling trip. Chloe couldn't understand the distinction. She'd taken a vacation. She deserved some fun. What was criminal about that? Officer Evans looked up from her paperwork. Leaving children without proper arrangements is a felony in this state, ma'am. Chloe spent that night in the county jail. I stayed at her house with Emily and Leo, trying to create some semblance of stability. Emily helped me clean the kitchen while Leo played with toys we'd found buried under laundry piles. She worked without complaining, like household maintenance was already her job. I asked how often she helped with housework. When Mom's tired, Emily said diplomatically. I was learning that Emily spoke in careful codes. When Mom's tired probably meant when Mom's hungover or when Mom's avoiding responsibility. Leo found a photo album buried under magazines and brought it to me. Pictures of Chloe holding baby Emily. Chloe teaching toddler Leo to walk. Family Christmas mornings from better times. Chloe had been a good mom once, or at least she'd tried to be. But something had shifted after her divorce. The fun-loving spontaneity had curdled into selfish irresponsibility. Emily looked at the photos with something like sadness. She used to make pancakes on Sundays, Emily said quietly. What happened to Sunday pancakes? She started staying out late on Saturday nights. Another carefully coded explanation. Saturday nights out had become Sunday morning hangovers. I made pancakes that Sunday morning. Emily helped measure ingredients while Leo set the table with mismatched plates. Neither child mentioned that their mother was sitting in jail. Chloe's arraignment was scheduled for Monday morning. I sat in the back of the courtroom with Aunt Susan, who looked ashamed and exhausted. Aunt Susan whispered that she'd tried to warn Chloe about her priorities multiple times. Chloe always promised to do better, then found new ways to mess up. The judge was middle-aged and stern, with no patience for excuses. He reviewed the case file with obvious disapproval: 6 days without contact, deceptive arrangements with family, children left in inadequate conditions. Chloe's overworked public defender tried to frame it as a misunderstanding between family members. The judge wasn't buying that explanation. Misunderstandings don't involve blocking phone numbers and lying about work emergencies. He noted that the defendant had been posting extensively on social media during the alleged emergency work trip. Chloe's bail was set at $5,000. She couldn't pay it. When she tried to speak on her own behalf, the judge cut her off. He'd seen enough evidence of her priorities. Chloe called me from jail that afternoon, begging me to drop the charges. I explained that criminal charges weren't something I could just drop. This was beyond family drama now. Chloe promised she'd learned her lesson. She just needed one more chance to prove she could be a good mother. I asked what lesson specifically she'd learned. That I can't trust family to understand when I need help. Wrong lesson entirely. I told her that her children had needed her help for 6 days while she posted vacation photos. Chloe insisted that kids were resilient. They'd bounce back from this. I hung up and blocked her jail number. Aunt Susan bailed Chloe out Wednesday morning, using money from her retirement account. Chloe looked haggard and angry when she appeared at her house that afternoon. She demanded her children back immediately, like they were packages she'd left for pickup. I explained that emergency custody didn't work like a dry cleaning service. There would be court hearings, evaluations, supervised visits. Ms. Chen had walked me through the entire legal process. This would take months to resolve. Chloe couldn't comprehend why she couldn't just reclaim her kids and move on. She was their mother. That should be enough. I reminded her that mothers don't abandon their children for casino trips. Her anger cracked briefly, showing something desperate and scared underneath. She claimed she'd made one mistake. Everyone deserved forgiveness for one mistake. I told her she'd made dozens of mistakes. This was just the most public and dramatic one. Chloe looked at Emily and Leo, who were staying close to my side like they'd imprinted on me. Leo gave her a tentative wave. Emily remained stone-faced. Chloe tried to appeal directly to them, asking sweetly if they missed mommy and wanted to come home. Leo nodded because he was 5 and missed his mom despite everything. Emily stayed silent because she was 8 and had learned that missing someone doesn't mean trusting them. I informed Chloe that the kids would be staying with me until the formal custody hearing next month. A month? Chloe's voice went shrill. You're keeping them for an entire month over one mistake? I clarified that the judge would decide the timeline, not me. Chloe stormed out, slamming the door so hard that pictures rattled on the walls. The next few weeks established a routine that felt healthier than anything the kids had experienced in years. I enrolled them in a summer day camp near my apartment. Emily thrived with structured activities and consistent mealtimes. Leo made friends and stopped asking daily when mommy was coming home. I moved them into my spare bedroom, bought them new clothes that actually fit, and established bedtime routines that included baths and story time. Emily blossomed with stability. She started laughing more, asking for help with things instead of trying to handle everything herself. Leo's bedwetting stopped. He began sleeping through the night without checking to make sure I was still there. Chloe's supervised visits were scheduled for twice a week at the family courthouse. She showed up sporadically, usually late, often with elaborate gifts that seemed designed more for her own guilt relief than the children's actual interests. She promised Disney World trips during one visit, a new puppy during another, a bigger house where they could each have their own room. Ms. Chen took notes on every unrealistic promise and every missed appointment. After the 4th visit, Emily asked privately if she had to keep seeing Chloe. She's your mom, I know, but she makes promises she never keeps. Emily listed examples: the promised trip to Six Flags that got cancelled for a date, the puppy that never materialized, the new bike that was always next week. I realized Emily had been managing her own and Leo's expectations for years, protecting them both from constant disappointment. An 8-year-old shouldn't have to be the family's reality check. The formal custody hearing was scheduled for early September. Chloe's behavior in the weeks leading up to it became increasingly erratic. She missed 3 supervised visits without calling to cancel. When she did show up, she seemed distracted and agitated, checking her phone constantly. Ms. Chen documented every missed appointment and concerning behavior. 2 weeks before the hearing, Chloe's boyfriend apparently dumped her. She called me sobbing, asking if she could see the kids outside the supervised visit schedule. I referred her to Ms. Chen and her lawyer. Chloe showed up drunk to the next supervised visit. Ms. Chen ended the session after 10 minutes and noted the incident in her report. The custody hearing arrived on a Tuesday morning in early September. Chloe was 23 minutes late, wearing wrinkled clothes that looked like she'd slept in them. Her public defender had managed to gather some character references, but they were thin and unconvincing: friends who barely knew her parenting style, former coworkers who hadn't seen her in months. My lawyer presented a thick folder of documentation: the original abandonment report, police photos, CPS evaluations, missed visit logs, social media evidence. The judge reviewed everything with increasing concern. When given a chance to speak, Chloe stood and delivered a tearful monologue about loving her children and making one terrible mistake in a moment of weakness. She claimed she'd been overwhelmed by single parenthood and made a poor decision. She'd learned from her errors and was committed to being a better mother. The judge looked unimpressed. He'd clearly heard similar speeches before. He noted the court's concern about Chloe's pattern of behavior, the documented abandonment, the deceptive arrangements, the lack of accountability, the missed supervised visits. When Chloe tried to interrupt with more promises, the judge raised his hand. He referenced the CPS reports showing that the children felt safer and more secure in their current placement. The judge awarded me temporary custody for 6 months, with a review scheduled for March. Chloe would be allowed supervised visits every other weekend, contingent on her completing parenting classes and maintaining stable housing and employment. Chloe shouted as we left the courtroom. She accused me of stealing her children and destroying her family. I reminded her that she'd abandoned her children first. That evening, I helped Emily and Leo arrange their belongings in what was now officially their bedroom in my apartment. Emily organized her few books by color on the shelf I'd bought. Leo lined up his toy cars in careful rows on his new dresser. The room was small, but clean and safe. Both kids had their own beds with fresh sheets. Night lights plugged into the walls cast gentle glows. "Are we staying here forever?" Leo asked while I helped him hang up his clothes. "For now. Is that okay with you?" He nodded vigorously and hugged my leg. Emily was quieter but seemed relieved. She'd stopped flinching when doors slammed or phones rang unexpectedly. The supervised visits became increasingly painful to watch. Chloe would arrive late and leave early, spending the limited time making elaborate promises she couldn't keep. She promised Leo a birthday party at Chuck E. Cheese. His birthday had passed 2 months earlier. She promised Emily a shopping trip for school clothes, then forgot that school had already started. Ms. Chen documented every unrealistic commitment and broken promise. Halloween approached, and Chloe missed the scheduled visit entirely. She called the next day, claiming she'd had the flu. I checked her social media. She'd posted photos from a Halloween party the same night, dressed as a Vegas showgirl. Leo's birthday came in November. Chloe missed that supervised visit, too, claiming work wouldn't let her take time off. According to her social media, she'd spent the day at a spa with girlfriends. Leo waited in the courthouse family room for 2 hours before Ms. Chen gently explained that his mom wasn't coming. He cried for the first time since the Vegas trip. December brought a recommendation from Ms. Chen that Chloe's parental rights be terminated entirely. She's demonstrated no meaningful effort to address the issues that led to abandonment, Ms. Chen explained during our meeting. The children have consistently expressed feeling safer and happier in your care. The termination hearing was scheduled for mid-December. Chloe received the court summons but didn't respond to calls from her lawyer or the court system. 3 days before the hearing, she finally called me directly. "You can't take my kids away." "I'm not taking them. You gave them away when you chose Vegas over responsibility." "I made one mistake." "You've made dozens of mistakes. This was just the most public one." Chloe begged me to speak to the judge on her behalf. She promised she was getting her life together. She had a new job, a new apartment in the works. I asked for proof of employment. She couldn't provide any. I asked for her current address. She was staying with friends but promised to find her own place soon. Same old Chloe. Big promises, no follow-through. The termination hearing arrived on a cold Tuesday in December. Emily wore her best dress, a blue one I bought her for school pictures. Leo brought his stuffed elephant for moral support. Chloe didn't show up. Her public defender filed a motion claiming she was in court-ordered rehabilitation. When the judge asked for documentation, the lawyer admitted he had none. The judge reviewed the case file one final time. 6 months of missed visits, broken promises, and zero progress toward stability. He terminated Chloe's parental rights at 10:47 a.m. The kids were quiet during the drive home from the courthouse. Emily held Leo's hand in the back seat, both of them processing what had just happened. That afternoon, Leo asked what he should call me now that the judge had said I was officially their guardian. Emily suggested Aunt Mom, which made Leo dissolve into giggles. I told him they could call me whatever felt comfortable. Christmas that year was the first one where presents actually appeared under the tree on Christmas morning. Emily helped me wrap Leo's gifts, and Leo made handmade cards for everyone he could think of. We established traditions: pancakes on Saturday mornings, movie nights on Fridays, homework time after dinner with music playing softly. Emily joined the school soccer team and discovered she was naturally athletic. Leo started taking swimming lessons and could float independently within a month. They stopped asking about Chloe entirely. January brought a card from Chloe with no return address. The postmark showed Phoenix, Arizona. The card contained a generic message about getting her life together and loving them both. No specific apologies, no acknowledgement of what she'd done. Emily read it carefully, then folded it and threw it in the kitchen trash without showing Leo. I started formal adoption proceedings in February. Emily was old enough to understand what legal adoption meant. She asked if it meant Chloe could never take them away again. I told her that's exactly what it meant. The adoption process required background checks, home studies, and interviews with court-appointed advocates. Ms. Chen handled our case and made it clear that this was a formality. The children had been thriving in my care for months. Emily's grades had improved dramatically. She'd gone from barely passing to honor roll in just 4 months. Leo was reading above grade level and had made the school soccer team despite being younger than most players. The home study went smoothly. The court advocate spent 3 hours at my apartment, interviewing the kids separately and observing our family dynamics. Emily showed her the chore chart we created together. Leo demonstrated how he helped set the table for dinner every night. Both children expressed clearly that they wanted to stay with me permanently. The advocate asked Emily if she missed her birth mother. Sometimes, Emily admitted, but I don't miss being scared all the time. Leo was more direct. He told the advocate that I made better sandwiches and never forgot to pick him up from school. The adoption was finalized on a sunny Friday in June. Emily and Leo got to pick new middle names as part of the legal process. Emily chose Grace, after her favorite teacher. Leo chose Dinosaur because he was 6 and dinosaurs were awesome. The judge laughed and approved both choices officially. We celebrated at the ice cream shop where I'd taken them that first terrible weekend when Chloe had disappeared. Emily ordered mint chocolate chip like always. Leo got rainbow sherbet with extra sprinkles. The irony wasn't lost on me. We were celebrating becoming a real family at the same place where I'd tried to distract them from their mother's abandonment. Summer passed in a blur of swimming lessons, library visits, and backyard barbecues. Emily learned to dive off the high board. Leo mastered riding his bike without training wheels. August brought school shopping that didn't involve asking relatives for money or selling belongings to afford supplies. Emily picked out a purple backpack and matching lunchbox. Leo chose superhero everything: backpack, folder, pencils, erasers. I realized this was the first time they'd started a school year with everything they needed. Bought new instead of borrowed or secondhand. First day of school photos showed 2 confident, happy children. Emily in her new dress, hair braided perfectly. Leo grinning with his missing front tooth and superhero backpack. A year had passed since that awful Thursday, and looking at Emily and Leo now, you'd never know how close they came to being forgotten. They had friends, hobbies, and routines that made them feel safe. More importantly, they laughed freely, like kids should. Chloe may have given birth to them, but she gave me the greatest responsibility and privilege of my life. I didn't just step in for a few days. I became the person they could count on. Some families are born by blood, but others are built through choice and commitment. And when I look at Emily and Leo, I know we became a real family the moment I opened that front door. What would you have done in my place? Could you have walked away from those children, or would you have fought for them too? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.